Across newsrooms worldwide, journalists froze. Teleprompters halted mid-scroll. Was it a glitch? A diplomatic misstep? A translation error? No, it was real. President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso had declined the Nobel Peace Prize. But not out of arrogance, not for show. He simply left the world a handwritten note. Justice does not need awards, only victory. At a time when global leaders chase applause and gold-plated recognition, Traoré stepped away from the limelight with steady resolve. Why? Because to him, and millions across Africa, peace isn't granted from gilded stages in Oslo. It's built by sweat-stained hands, under sun-scorched skies, through sacrifice and struggle. So what kind of leader walks away from the world's most prestigious honor, and what does that decision say about us? When confirmation reached the press, the headlines stumbled. The magnitude of Traoré's action could not be contained in bold print. He had done the unthinkable. The president of Burkina Faso, a nation long overlooked on Western maps, had turned down the world's most coveted peace accolade. His note was just 5 lines, but honestly its weight carried centuries. Justice does not need awards, only victory. I am honored, but I cannot accept this prize while my people still bleed, while our land still suffers, and while freedom remains under siege. Later that same day he addressed his people, not from a global stage, but from a humble wooden platform surrounded by farmers, infants, and weary mothers. He spoke plainly, "I am not a saint, I am not a savior, I am a worker of the soil. And workers do not stop mid-harvest to accept medals. We finish the work first, then we feed the village." The crowd stood still, not in confusion, but in awe. If this prize belongs to anyone, it belongs to the women who walked barefoot to teach, to the widows who forgave men who once held guns, to the children who now drink clean water for the first time. Let the Nobel be carved into every school wall, every hospital bed, every ploughed furrow, not into a gold medal, not into my name. And with that he stepped down, picked up a shovel and helped dig a new irrigation trench. That moment, raw, unscripted, powerful, shook Africa and, well, stunned the world. In France, President Anne-Luc Marot stood before cameras, visibly shaken. She said, "We misunderstood him. He never played our game. He is building something we still do not fully understand." Her words weren't political, they were human. For the West, it was a rare moment of humility. They had mistaken him for a player. He had rewritten the rules. Around the world, the reactions were swift and varied as leaders and citizens alike grappled with the unfolding events. There was a palpable sense of disbelief mixed with a growing curiosity. Many began to question their own perspectives, wondering what they might have overlooked. It was clear that a new narrative was emerging, one that challenged the status quo and demanded a re-evaluation of long-held assumptions. The global community stood at a crossroads, facing a future that seemed both uncertain and full of potential. At the Vatican, Pope Leo XIV paused his address. He said, "There are saints who decline canonization not from pride but humility. Traoré is such a soul. May we learn not just to admire him but to follow him." His words echoed through the halls, a call to action that transcended borders and beliefs. It was a moment that invited reflection and inspired hope, urging all to consider the deeper values that unite us as a global family. In New York, the Secretary General stood before the United Nations, eyes misted. This is not a rejection, it is a reminder. Peace must not be celebrated from afar, it must be lived. The name of Burkina Faso echoed in halls where it had rarely been spoken, and now it could no longer be ignored. On August 17th, tens of thousands marched not in protest but in celebration. From the Grand Mosque to Ouagadougou University, they held signs that read, "We are the Nobel. Traoré chose us, not the world. Justice does not need awards, only victory." Folk singers composed a new ballad, Lidou Silence, about the man who left the gold behind and gave his people bread. Markets stayed open. Women danced barefoot in red dust. Children wrote essays titled, "What is peace if it does not feed us?" In Thomas Sankara Square, an old man whispered to a reporter, "We've had medals before. They were given to traitors. This time our leader handed it back. That is why we follow him." From Bamako to Niamey to Conakry, Traoré's decision became more than personal. It became a call, a wake-up to youth, a challenge to the old order, a revolution in silence. He wasn't looking for applause. He was demanding action. From Bamako to Niamey to Conakry, Traoré's decision became more than personal. It became a call, a wake-up to youth, a challenge to the old order, a revolution in silence. He wasn't looking for applause. He was demanding action. In American living rooms, classrooms, and think tanks, debates erupted. Was he reckless, a radical idealist, or the kind of leader the world desperately needs? The New York Times asked, "What is leadership in a world obsessed with optics? Is peace a photo op? Or is it the backbreaking labor that never makes headlines?" Political analysts began to draw comparisons. While other leaders posed behind polished podiums, Traoré was in the dirt, digging canals. He chose service over spectacle, purpose over prestige. In an era of polished speeches, he lifts a shovel. And so, the very idea of leadership began to shift. The true prize was no longer applause or titles, but rather the lasting impact on people's lives. For Traoré, it was about rolling up his sleeves and getting to work, proving that real change is built with calloused hands and, honestly, a whole lot of heart. For many older Americans who had lived through decades of hollow promises, Traoré was a reminder of what leadership could be, what it should be. His refusal was not defiance for show, it was a call to rethink everything. Inside the hallowed Nobel Committee chambers, silence reigned. One member, speaking off the record, said, "He did not just refuse the prize, he redefined it. We have entered the era of shovel diplomacy, peace built from the ground up." Ideas swirled. Could the prize be restructured? Could funds be sent directly to grassroots development in Burkina Faso? Schools, clinics, irrigation, even without his acceptance? Perhaps for the first time, the Nobel Peace Prize could evolve from a symbol into action. Across the globe, people re-evaluated what they thought they knew about power. Traoré's example shifted focus from image to impact, from medals to meaning, from spectacle to substance. He reminded the world, we do not ask permission to be free, we rise to claim it. If this story moved you, if you believe leadership means building, not branding, share this story. Subscribe to this journey because Africa is not waiting for applause, it is rising on its own terms. If this story moved you, if you believe leadership means building, not branding, share this story. Subscribe to this journey because Africa is not waiting for applause, it is rising on its own terms. Justice does not need awards, only victory, as Ibrahim Traoré said.